How's everybody doing? This is West 'em Up. It's AFC West podcast from Armchair All Americans. Um, I'm here with my buddy Cade. First off, my name's Milo, and I'm out here in Denver, Colorado.
Like Milo said, my name is Kay Campbell. I'm coming from Seattle, Washington. And how you doing, Milo?
Oh, not bad, man. Got a little bit of the bug, but other than that, it's been a pretty decent month. Got myself too much food last week for Thanksgiving.
Hey, man, I hear that. I had too much pie, so I was up on the ground taking nap after nap.
Yeah, I
And
think
then,
I went up like three pant sizes just in one day, so I have to kind of hold off until Christmas.
yep, sounds about right.
So yeah, let's jump right into this crazy week in the AFC West. So I mean, obviously you're a Raiders fan, I'm a Broncos fan, and Sunday's game against the Broncos and Raiders, it really, I guess you could say, it illustrated how much of a rivalry these teams have had over the years. It has calmed down in recent years, but with Akeem Talib grabbing Michael Crabtree's chain, what was that on January 1st, the last game of the season last year. They didn't meet up this first game of the year. What was that in week 4? But they met up this last week, and another chain came coming off the neck of Crabtree, which pissed him off. In other words, and he took Talib to the ground. There was some, fists thrown. What were your thoughts about that?
Man, it was I could see this one coming, honestly, man. It was since even last year, I think Aqib Talib had something on or had one up on Michael Crabtree for snatching his chain, and like a lot of people say that he punked him. So I think Michael Crabtree just had this feeling in the back of his head, this urge just to go at Aqib Talib when he saw him next. And I mean, you could see by the replay, Michael Crabtree kind of instigated the whole fight and pushed it to the level we saw it, going to the sidelines and knocking over people and having the whole benches clear. But yeah, man, it was. I mean, you could see this coming, and I think the 2-game suspension honestly was a little bit much, but I'm glad that they reduced it down to 1 game because these are two key factors, 2 key players that play important roles for these teams, and they need these guys on the field to make runs down later in the season and just to bring viewers what they want. What were your thoughts on it?
Oh man, it was to me, like you said, it was pretty much expected. Like you said, 2 games seemed obsessive, but I figured that the league would drop it down to 1. And I'm not sure about Crabtree's numbers, but just for having saved that 1 game for Talib, he essentially doesn't have to pay $500,000 worth of money to the league. So that's a hefty payday right there, and that's probably obviously one of his game checks. But it all started with him going at Chris Harris and punching Chris Harris in the stomach, and after that it just boiled up to a certain point to where, hey, look, neither one of us is gonna punk each other. We just need to throw down, and it was kind of like I guess you could say Saturday Night UFC up in there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty entertaining. It was, I mean, I think it happened in the first quarter, and I didn't tune into the game till the late first quarter, and Crabtree and Aqib Talib were already gone. So, it was, I feel like it was destined to be, and we saw that it was like a hockey fight. These 2 players going at each other have history. They're going to throw down. So I'm just sad that I didn't get to see it live. I ended up seeing the replay and all that, but it was definitely like a UFC fight. It was pretty cool. The cool things were like the memes on afterwards. It was like I saw one. It said, does Michael Crabtree pay more in fines for the NFL or more on the gold chains that Aqib Talib keeps snapping off of him? So I think it was good fun for everybody.
Yeah, speaking of memes and all that, there's a couple I seen. Somebody photoshopped Talib's head onto 2 Chain's first album that he made, and he was holding up the 2 Chains, and
Yeah.
then there's another one. It was like they have these memes. You see them on Facebook all the time, but it's like Mexican word of the day is Talib, and it was like make sure you or whenever you play the Broncos, to leave your chain at home or something like that. I'm messing it up, but you have to leave
Good
your
old
chain at
bugs.
home, and it was just like gosh, people are gonna have a field day with this. So I mean, it was definitely interesting. Both guys made poor decisions, but at the end of the day, it's kind of good to see that rivalry coming back.
Yeah, I think like you said earlier in the podcast that it's slowed down in recent years, but I mean both these teams still have somewhat hate for each other, and it's good to see something like that, spark it back up, even with the times that the AFC is right now. But staying in Oakland, I know that Amari Cooper, he had a touchdown this last game, but right after a touchdown, I think he got a concussion, and he's on concussion protocol this last week, and he might not play this upcoming Sunday. What's your thoughts on that?
It's crazy that happened. He obviously took that it was a vicious hit from Darian Stewart, I believe, and there wasn't much Darian Stewart could do about it. He was going in, and their heads just kind of met up right at the perfect time. So they both were, well, especially Cooper, they both were slow to get up. And I guess on the exact same play, Cooper injured his ankle as well. So even if he does make it back this week, he's going to be hurting. And if the Raiders can't get Cooper in the lineup, you're pretty much down to just Seth Roberts because the Crabtree suspension as well.
Yeah, we all know Cooper's an elite wide receiver in this league, even though he's had a kind of an off year. But I mean, he definitely draws a lot of attention in that offense, and I feel like it's just lucky for the Raiders, who play a struggling New York Giants team this coming up week, to have an injury like this for their star receiver. Maybe they should end up sitting him, and just plan different accordingly to the game coming up without him, because this team is in the position to still make a playoff run, even though it's been kind of disappointing, but their season. But you need Amari Cooper healthy for this last stretch of games they have to make a playoff run.
Yeah, and just looking at their schedule, I mean, it's not the toughest of schedules, but they have of course they play three, or let's see, you got two AFC West games, one against the Chiefs, one against the Chargers. The one against the Chargers is probably going to be a defining game if they have around the same record and they're trying to make it into the playoffs or win a division title. The week before that, they have Christmas Day, they play the Eagles. They play the Cowboys the week before that, Chiefs. And then this next week, they got the Giants, which, you would think the way that the Giants have been playing this year, they might be an easy team. But the only wins that the Giants have had this year have been against the AFC West. So it's not that easy of a schedule for them.
Yeah, this game coming up against the Giants, I know everybody knows that Eli Manning got benched, and Geno Smith is going to take over this game next Sunday. And I think for the defense that the Raiders have, Geno Smith is a perfect fit for this team. He's an okay thrower. He was a starter in this league. He has some years under his belt, but he also he's a threat in the run game too. And with a defense like the Raiders, I feel like if you had to have your quarterback rush, you can get some key third downs and keep the chains moving and make it a game against this Raiders team. So we're gonna have to see. Yeah, it's not an easy cakewalk, but we'll just end up seeing this next Sunday.
Yeah, and so they have a lot to overcome just as a team. Especially on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive wise, the run game hasn't been as productive as they would want it to be, and the offensive line has failed at times. But if they could get Cooper back healthy and Crabtree comes back, he'll be rested for a week. Obviously he's suspended. That's a bad thing for the team. But if he could come back rested, that's just another threat for Derek Carr to have, so they can make a run. At taking the AFC West.
Yeah, they're close, very close to taking the AFC West. And another team who is close is the Chargers, getting the win against the Cowboys last week. They're now 5-6, the same position as the Raiders. I think they have a game up on them with a win in the division. But some news coming out of there is that their starting cornerback, Casey Hayward, isn't going to be with the team this week in Cleveland. I think they're going to Cleveland this week.
Yeah, and if my memory serves me right, the Browns, they snapped their I guess you could say season where they were winless last year against the Chargers.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think if my memory serves me right as well, I'm in the same boat as you. But the Browns actually come to LA this week, and Casey Hayward actually left the team. I guess his cousin was killed on Monday in Georgia. So I think he's heading back to Atlanta. And do you think this is going to affect the team against the Browns?
Oh, big time. I mean, you look at what Deshaun Kaiser has been doing the past couple weeks. He's been getting the ball out quicker. He's been just playing his heart off. I mean, I know they say they don't have a quarterback really, good quarterback situation there, but I've seen a lot of progression from Deshaun Kaiser the past few weeks. And then on top of that, you got to remember that Josh Gordon's coming back this week. So with Josh Gordon in the picture, yeah, he might be a little rusty. He might still be a little high. That's a joke, by the way. You know, with him coming back this week, he might, he might be able to burn the Chargers secondary. So they'll just need to watch that out. They might have to shadow a safety on his side, and they just need to be on top of their game because the Chargers are really primed to sneak up and take this division after starting 0-4.
Yeah, I mean the Chargers are definitely peaking, and the Browns coming to LA, 0-, I think it's 11 now. I mean, they're definitely looking for a win. And Kaiser, I agree with you too, Milo, that he has been looking better in these past couple of weeks, getting more comfortable in the NFL system. And then Josh Gordon, yeah, he's a beast. I know people who have him on fantasy who don't know to start him or not because nobody knows what he's going to be like if he comes back, if he's going to be dominant the way he left. I think it was a couple years ago. So you can never know with this Cleveland Browns team. I mean, the saying around the NFL, any given Sunday, can be the day. And this Cleveland Browns team needs a win. They don't want to go winless and be made fun of in the NFL. So the Chargers, they got to stay. What we talk? Casey Hayward. They got to find a replacement. I mean, hopefully that defensive line can step up and bring another win to maybe make this team tied with first place with the Chiefs this coming up week.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just looking at their last, 7 games? Yeah, 7 games. I mean, they've gone 5-2. I can't remember the exact stats I did, but you're looking at Phillip Rivers, and he's just playing lights out. He's been tearing it up. You got a whole bunch of weapons on that offense. I think Keenan Allen's had over 280 yards, 260 yards, something like that in the past 2 games, and 3 or 4 touchdowns. So it's going to be tough for the Browns, but the Chargers just need to jump out ahead of this team and make the Browns play from behind, especially with the absence of Casey Hayward.
Yeah, they definitely got to rely on Keenan Allen. He's had crazy 2 weeks. I think over 300 yards with 3 touchdowns, like you said, and he's just been dominant. And Phillip Rivers has been playing lights out. Melvin Gordon has been playing solid, getting some good rushing yards. And I think he had a touchdown a couple weeks ago. But, yeah, the Charger team, I think they'll win the game. I don't want to give out my prediction that early, but, yeah, I think they'll be fine. And hopefully Casey Hayward can come back the next week and then, get serious and come back for a good playoff run for this team.
Yeah, no, the last thing coming out of Los Angeles is with the injury to Nick Novak, the Chargers have brought in some kickers to try out just in case. One of them happens to be a kicker they had earlier this season that cost them a few games, Young Ho Koo. So that'll be interesting to see what happens and if Nick Novak can get back. If not, I'm pretty sure Cade and I were joking around before the show saying, they're grabbing Young Ho Koo and just staring him in the eye like, this is your chance or else we're going to, you're done. And,
you get one more chance or you get in the boot, Young Ho.
He really has to show up for this game. And if he does end up playing, if not, let's hope Nick Novak comes back. He's been looking good for them. And that's been a big reason why they've been winning some of these games lately.
Yeah, he's been definitely consistent for that team since Young Ho Koo basically was kicked off the team. But, yeah, I think he I think he was just taking it day by day, but yeah, I think he's going to end up playing. I think he just was a cause of soreness or something like that. And Young Hoku, I mean, I think the spotlight was too big on him, and maybe he can come in and get a few field goals and let Nick Novak sit out a week so he can get rested up for this team because they're going to need him later on during the season.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, they could possibly, like you said, they could possibly just rest and go back for a little bit, and then have them back in time for the rest of their schedule, which they actually have. It looks like one of the harder schedules going into the final 5 weeks of the AFC West. Um, uh, yeah, we're gonna get on to our, I guess, our reviews of the last week. Is there anything more you want to add to news? Did you hear anything? Yeah. Now I know what we're skipping on the Kansas City Chiefs. One thing I wanted to bring up that's crazy is so Kansas City put in their newly acquired cornerback Darrell Revis's contract that if he helps them make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, he can make $13.5 million. That is just wow for less than half a season.
Yeah, I mean, I still do not understand how this man's still getting cash in the NFL. I feel like he's been making right under $15 million for the past like 5 seasons. But hey, man, kudos to Darrell Revis. And I mean, the Chiefs have been looking slumped lately, but they're still a great team. And if he does get there, then I'm definitely cheering for him because put in half a season of work and you get that much money, who wouldn't want that?
Oh man, I wish any company would hit me up and be like, "Hey, Milo, we just need you to work for about 6-7 weeks. There goes $13.5 million."
Ching.
I'd be like, "Hell yeah!" That's all right. So yeah, while we're on it, I guess since we're on the Chiefs right now, let's recap their game. So they pretty much had the Bills come into Kansas City, and it just wasn't a good game for them. What were your thoughts about Kansas City in this game?
Man, Kansas City just looks like out of their mind, just looks flustered, especially in the first half of that game. I feel like the Bills just dominated that I think they had Tyrone Taylor back the whole game this week, and he did fairly well for him, only throwing 183 yards, but one touchdown, no interceptions. But that's what Taylor does. He doesn't give the ball away or nothing. But it wasn't a big like win by the Buffalo Bills. It was kind of just like the Chiefs just not playing up to standard. It was just so strange. You have Alex Smith, who actually led the team in rushing. Like Kareem Hunt has been pretty much just ghost these past couple weeks. He had 11 carries for 17 yards. Alex Smith, about 200 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. I think it's his second week in a row throwing an interception in the fourth quarter. So my big thing about it was just, is Alex Smith, is this the last couple of weeks, is this the Alex Smith we're going to see for the rest of the season? Because this reminds me of the Alex Smith early on in his career with the 49ers. And this is what made this team so deadly in the first half of the season, was Alex Smith was playing exceptional. Plus their rushing game was doing excellent with Kareem Hunt. But now it's just like this offense has just, released on the gas pedal. And it's kind of confusing because you feel like Andy Reid, he does these excellent play calls and all that, and they still have it, but they're just not executing. And then you have the defense on top of it who just gives up yards and yards and just makes mistake after mistake. So it's just confusing to me right now, and since in Kansas City. What's your thoughts on it?
Oh man, I was totally shocked. I honestly, I think I might have picked the Bills to win this game, just because I felt like Kansas City was on the down. But I was doing some research this morning, and in the first like 5 games of the year, Alex Smith threw for over 70. I mean, he completed 70% of his passes. That has gone down slightly to like 63%,
Okay.
64, 62 to 64, somewhere around there. And he's thrown 8 touchdowns these past 6 games compared to 11 the first 5 games. and then he's thrown 4 interceptions these last 3 games. And it's just to me, I know a lot of people in Kansas City want to sit up here and blame Alex Smith. Oh man, he's crap. Let's put in Mahomes. Let's see what he's got. But when you look at Alex Smith's numbers, they've actually been pretty good. It's just that he's not getting, a consistent 250 plus yards a game. So it makes you wonder what is really going on with this team. And I talk to friends all the time. Andy Reid, great coach. I mean, hands down, one of the best coaches in the game. He had that one great year where he took Philadelphia to the Super Bowl. They lost, of course, in the Super Bowl to the Patriots, I believe. And it just seems like with my perception of Andy Reid is usually he does all his plays in the season. So his playbook, by the time he gets to the playoffs, he doesn't have nothing. So I don't know if really it's just that the team's not absorbing the coaching well there right now, or if Andy Reid's kind of putting some of the plays on the back burner for right now, just in case they do still make the playoffs and has a fresh, playbook for the playoffs this year to try to make that Super Bowl push. So, like you, I'm just so confused with how Kansas City has been playing. With that Broncos game, yes, the Broncos have a crappy offense. So, I mean, if the Broncos had a better offense, they could have possibly lost 6 straight. But, they've lost 4 or 5 out of the past 6 games, and it's just not helping them at all.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about Andy Reid. It might just be, he showed all his plays during the first half of the season, and now teams are just getting accustomed to it and watching the film on it. So hopefully he has some plays in the back of his playbook that he can bring out these last couple of weeks because the Chiefs need it. Because at this point, I mean, they're going to be tied. I mean, I think they play Miami next week, and that could go either way for me because Miami is a great team. I think Jay Cutler's coming back. But what were you saying?
Well, they actually the Broncos play Miami, and the Chiefs play the Jets.
Oh, that's right. The Chiefs play the Jets. Yep, my bad.
Which I mean, with the way Josh McCown has been playing, last week I think he threw 3 touchdowns in the loss to Carolina, and actually had a way better game than Cam Newton, who's considerably a way better quarterback. I can honestly see them losing this game as well, with that, as good as the Jets have been this year, even though the Jets have a losing record.
Yeah, the Jets are no one to go. It's not a cakewalk. They're 4-7, and Josh McCown. I mean, those boys can play over than the Jets. I think they were ranked the worst team coming into the season, but they are not by any means the worst team at this point. And hopefully, I mean, I can see the Jets taking this game too. So, I mean, you give the fact that the Chargers are playing the Browns and the Raiders are playing the Giants. I mean, this team could be tied for first place between 3 teams, and they were, I think, had a 2-game lead at one point in the AFC West. But going back to Andy Reid, he hopefully he has some plays hidden in the back of his playbook, because you see the possessions that the Chiefs teams had, and I think 8 of the 12 possessions they had, they punted the ball. And I mean, that's not going to win you any games at all. And then you have turnovers on top of that. We have a defense who I believe is ranked 27th in the league. It's just, everything's going downhill to the Chiefs right now. And I think they're still at that rock bottom, and they got to find a solution quick because the Chargers and the Raiders are coming right behind their tails.
Yeah, and you speaking of Chargers and the Raiders, they obviously have the Jets this week. That's not as easy as a game as some would think. Right after that, I mean, they essentially Kansas City is playing all teams that are under 500 right now. The only problem with the rest of their schedule is they play the Raiders once, they play the Chargers once, and they play the Broncos once. And we all know division games are always some of the toughest games that you play. So they got to get stuff together quick, because if they don't, they could be essentially that team that was supposed to make the playoffs, has a great stacked team, and they're not going to do nothing with it. It'll be such a disappointment, and I think that this will be if one thing I want to bring up, if Alex Smith, even if he has a good game but doesn't get the win, I can honestly see them bringing in Mahomes here soon.
Yeah, I've been hearing some talk, around the Kansas City Chiefs fan base and online about, Holmes coming in and being the starting quarterback, which would which would be crazy to me because we were just worshiping Alex Smith early in the season that this dude is playing at a MVP caliber season and he's probably the best leader as a quarterback in the league that we thought, and now he's turned did a 180 and turned back to the old Alex Smith, which is crazy. But yeah, that's a good point. 3 division games ending the season out of 5 games. Those games can go either way too. The AFC West this year has just been every team has just been average, so you never know what's going to happen any given Sunday when those teams play each other. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially if they lose this week. It's going to be a 3-way tie, in my opinion, this next coming up week, and I just can't see the Chiefs coming back and taking the division title and having a bye in the playoffs for the first round.
Exactly. I mean, I think if they're fortunate enough, they'll obviously whoever wins this division will get that one home game. But home games are pretty crucial. And looking at their record, they won. Let's see, one. So you have them winning New England. You have them winning Chargers. You have them winning against the Texans. So I mean, they're 3-3, I believe, right now on the road. So that's 500%. It's not a good sign. You look at like the Patriots. Patriots are undefeated on the road. So they're even if they don't get the top overall seed, they look good in other people's houses, and that's the problem with the Chiefs. Even at home, they seem to be struggling recently. So they just need to get everything in shape. They'll be in New York this week, and then 3 straight home games, and then they head to Denver to finish up the season. So they need a lot to happen, and a lot to happen fast.
Yeah, it's just confusing in Kansas City for me right now. You have questions on Kareem Hunt, talking about the rookie of the year early on in the season. Now he's just nowhere to be found. You have Kelsey, who's had some subpar weeks. You have Tyreek Hill, who's had some subpar weeks. And, it's just confusion when I look at this team. So definitely tune in Sunday and check out them against the Jets because this might be a season saver for them, this game if they win. But let's move on to the Chargers versus the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day. I think we left off right before the game started, our last podcast. What was your thoughts on that, Milo?
So first off, sorry to our fans. We had conflict in scheduling. Kate had to head up to Alaska to see his family, and I was cooking my butt off. But we both, I believe, predicted that the Chargers would win that game, and they did. They demolished. Dak Prescott and it's not like Dak Prescott even had a horrible game. He only he threw 27 passes, completed 20 of them. Of course, he had 2 interceptions, but the thing that really stood out for me is just Phillip Rivers. He was 27 to 33, 434 yards with 3 touchdowns. That guy was unstoppable that day.
He was unstoppable, and that offense was unstoppable. I mean, the big thing about this game, you have possession. The Chargers had 36 minutes, Dallas 23 minutes. But you go to the yards, the total yards, the Chargers 515 yards compared to the Cowboys 247 yards. And 434 of those yards came from the passing game. And Phillip Rivers is just looking incredible right now. He's definitely the second half of the season AFC West MVP, in my opinion, if there's such a thing. But man, he's just killing it. Melvin Gordon, he's steady in the rushing game. The passing game's just dominant right now. So I think he's getting less carries. But Gordon, he stays doing work down there. But Keenan Allen has definitely stepped up in that passing game, going over 150 yards each game these past 2 games with a touchdown. Like this guy is just unstoppable. And like you saw him on I think the last touchdown, maybe the second to last touchdown, catch the ball and go 3 defenders. He's just one of the most electrifying players to watch for this Chargers team. and they just look dominant. They look like the best team in the AFC West. I'm just going to get that out there right now.
Yeah, no, they've probably been one of the best teams in the NFL recently. I mean, um, you just highlighted what they do on offense. On defense, I'm looking at the stats of the league. The Chargers, I believe, are in the top five teams for turnovers, and then they're in like the top five teams for sacks. So, this team they might give up the yardage, they might give up some points here and there, but they've really got it going on. And with that combination, you got Casey Hayward, who they're going to miss this week. Um, but you got Joey Bosa coming off one side, Melvin Ingram off the other. That's enough to scare anybody. And with the Broncos and the Raiders, they have a combination like that as well. But teams have been able to figure out how to stop those guys. They have had trouble stopping these two guys this year. And like it seems like every week Joey Bosa is getting a sack and nobody's talking about him. I mean, this guy is the real deal.
Yeah, he's definitely gone under the radar, but for some reason, because he is the real deal, especially with Ingram too, on the opposite side of him. Those guys are just the dynamic duo down there, and I think the Chargers teams are just peaking at the right time. They went 0-4. Everybody's laughing at them first year in LA. Everybody's starting to see if the season's over for them, and then they come back and win 5 games out of 7, and they just seem dominant. Like you said, one of the best teams in the NFL right now, and I won't be surprised if this team ends up winning the AFC West because with an offense this deadly, with Phillip Rivers going at this elite level, not making any turnovers, throwing interceptions, no dumb plays like they were doing in the beginning of the season, and then them just finishing games. I mean, that's what the problems was with this team early in the season. They're looking like they can make a big playoff run and maybe take down maybe a Patriots team or a Pittsburgh Steelers team.
Yeah, no, just looking, even if you look at all their games this year, with the exception of the Chiefs in week 3, they've lost all their games that they have lost. They've lost by less than 10 points. So, I mean, this is a good team. And even so, a couple weeks back when they faced the Patriots, lost by 8 points. And that was a couple key mistakes they made at the end of the game. You also have them making some key mistakes in the Jaguars game. But if they could have won those 2 games, you're looking at a team that would be easily running away with this AFC West right now. But they're in prime position to just take it. And with the Raiders, having the suspension, Amari Cooper, is injured, and them possibly having a tougher week than some might think, you're looking at Oakland maybe even going for a loss this week. And then if Kansas City gets the loss, which we just talked about, this will catapult Los Angeles right into the running for the AFC West.
Yeah, and you look at their schedule with all those points you made. You got the Browns this week, the Redskins after that, who are 5-6 as well, but it's in LA. It should be a great game. And then they have the Chiefs, the Jets, and then the Raiders. So, I mean, some tough games coming on. No easy wins except for the Browns, in my opinion, this coming up week. But, man, yeah, they are in a prime position to take this and just, come from behind the curtain and then steal the show from the Chiefs and possibly the Raiders. So, yeah, you just got to keep an eye on this team because, man, they're the dark horse in the AFC. Mark my words.
Yeah, and just us talking about Phillip Rivers. This guy, I mean, he's been excellent lately. When the Chargers have lost, looking at his stats, he's thrown 9 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, has an 85 percent QB rating. It has completed 61 of his passes, actually has more yards. But in his wins, it's a whole different story. He's thrown 11 touchdowns just to 1 interception and has a 107.7 rating and has a higher average, a higher completion percentage, and has seemed to throw a little bit less passes. But, it just goes to show you that this team is prime and they're ready. And I had an article earlier this year on this team, how they were looking for a brotherhood to come together and prove everybody wrong. That they're in a city that doesn't want them. We have the Rams already. We've had football teams here before that failed us, and now everybody and their mama out there in LA is buying a Chargers jersey or dusting off their old Chargers jersey, and so these guys, they're kind of a feel good story this year, and it would be really great to see them move on. And as we were talking about, Cleveland ideally should be an easy game for them with the absence of Casey Hayward and arrival of Josh Gordon for like the 18th time. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, back to Phillip Rivers, one last thought on him. His last, I believe, 5 games, he's thrown 10 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. And those games that he's won in the past 3 games, no interceptions and 7 touchdowns. So this guy is at an elite level. I think he's ranked 5th in the NFL in touchdowns, 7th in yards. And, I mean, like we said this whole year on this podcast, that he's the key to success in LA for the Chargers. And, yeah, without him playing well, I don't think this team is going to win games, but he's at a peak in his game right now, and his performance shows, and this team is going to be deadly on in the later games of the season.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is another game just to keep your eye on. Obviously, the Browns are winless this year, but, if the Chargers can pull this out, things are going to heat up out here in the West, and it might be to where you see more of these games become primetime, especially with the Raiders and the Chargers playing each other on the last game of the year.
Yeah, that should be pretty good. I mean, Raiders are kind of iffy, but I think that game, like you said earlier, will determine what team gets into the playoffs or not, and have a big factor in the mix-up of the AFC West.
Exactly. So, I guess let's move on to our next team. So we obviously just we'll leave the Broncos for last since they're our last place. That hurts to say that, but let's go to your team, the Oakland Raiders. So they obviously had this matchup that was to me it was a great game. It really illustrated to the Broncos that Paxton Lynch is not the franchise QB they hoped he could be. It was unfortunate that he had that interception, which was the Oakland Raiders' first interception of the year. But it was unfortunate that he had that. He ended up getting a high ankle sprain. Will probably miss the rest of the season. And then you have Trevor Siemian come in, and he just goes off and throws 2 touchdown passes really quick, almost puts the Broncos back in the game. But without Aqib Talib, Derek Carr just stepped up and threw that. It was the ugliest floating pass I've ever seen in my life. And I don't know if anybody else felt that way, but the way he threw it, I was like, why is he throwing it like that? And it just like dropped right into who was that, Patterson's hands? And
yeah, Cordell Patterson.
And that won the game for them. They got enough yards. It was like a 3rd and 14 or something like that. And I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
we had a chance, but other than that, it was a good game, and it really showed that it took a lot for Trevor Siemian to get benched, have to sit out essentially for 2 Brock Osweiler games, a Paxton Lynch game, and then come in at the end of the game and say, you know what, I am the quarterback of this team. Although I don't know if management feels that way, but it took a lot for him just to come out and do that.
Yeah, Paxton Lynch, I just heard your voice when I was watching the game. Every time he came on the field, it was just, we don't want Paxton Lynch. We don't want Paxton Lynch. And then, he goes throwing 41 yards and 1 interception in 3 quarters. And it's just like, yeah, you need to get that guy on the sideline, get him up in the booth or something, have him hold up the cards for the quarterback audibles or something, you see in college football. But, yeah, I think it was a good game overall for the Raiders. They were definitely dominant in the first 3 quarters. Scoring 21 points and holding Denver to 0 points. But I think that also talks about Paxton Lynch and the offense and how bad that was, and then their ailing defense and how their defense isn't really that dominant anymore. And then with also the missing factor of Aqib Talib, I think that showed in the score as well. But yeah, man, you bring up a great point with Trevor Siemian, and I think in Denver they're stuck in this thought of, do we want to win games or do we want to look to the future? And Trevor Siemian is definitely the answer to win games now. because as you see, he comes in the fourth quarter, he throws 149 yards, 2 touchdowns, and gives his team a chance to win the game. But also, they're looking toward the future. And I don't know, do you start Paxton Lynch again or Brock Osweiler, or do you find another guy? Who knows? But I think that just shows the Broncos season and how it's gone. And yeah, it's just confusing for them right now because they're stuck in those 2 places. But for the Raiders, good game for Carr, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 250 yards, and Marshawn Lynch gets a touchdown, 67 yards. I think it was just they were lucky. Trevor Siemian didn't play the whole game, but we'll take the win.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Raiders go, they played as well as you could play against a Denver defense that still is a good defense, but they played as well as they could. And for me, they came out and they were the overpowering team. You had Lynch, he had that unfortunate interception, and I think after that they just were able to get into his head. They were able to affect him and make sure that he wasn't going to do nothing else. So to me, you brought up the quarterback issue. So I just pulled up, I guess you could say, the contracts of the different players, here with the Broncos. And so with Paxton Lynch, he signed a 4-year deal in 2016. Let's see, 2018, he'll have there's a club option in 2021, and he could become a free agent that year. But he's not due to make much. So even if they cut him, he only is due to make 1.31. I don't really see the Broncos cutting him all the way. They might have him on a roster, of course, see what Chad Kelly can do and all that. Then you go, where's the other guys? Man, they do not make this list easy for you to read. But Brock Osweiler, he has the 1-year contract with the Broncos where he's making, I think they just signed him for, what was it, $300,000 a year. So
yeah, I think the Browns are still playing him.
Yeah, the Browns got most of that. And then with Trevor Siemian, I don't see his contract on here, but I think he's good for like another year or 2. So realistically, and we'll get into this more when the offseason gets here, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a short playoffs for the AFC West, unless there's like a crazy uprise by like the Chargers or Raiders or Chiefs, whoever makes it. But yeah, so that's going to be definitely a discussion we get into more during the offseason of who's going to become the quarterback for the Broncos and if they're going to go out and get Eli Manning or Drew Brees if he's available or Kirk Cousins. So, but for now, yes, like you said, Trevor Siemian is the answer to win now. He gives you the best chance. He throws the most touchdown passes. He takes the extra risk. But the problem is he hasn't had an offensive line for him all year, and that's what causes him to panic. Is he has big guys, and I mean, if you're a quarterback, Cade, and you had a 300-pound defensive tackle running into your face, you probably would throw a couple interceptions as well.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely would, and yeah, that was definitely the reason why Trevor Siemian ended up getting benched, was because all the offensive line struggles and then also the rushing. It's just like the end of the season, I feel like, for the Broncos. And what's going to be interesting to see what John Elway does at the end of the season, if he gets a quarterback as like an Eli Manning, or he gets a quarterback in the draft, or he ends up trading some players. And yeah, man, I think they're due for a big offseason. But I also want to get back to the Raiders defense in this game. Ken Norton Jr., he's been the coach for the defensive he's been the defensive coordinator for the Raiders all season. He gets fired last week. And new guy comes in, and then they end up getting 5 sacks, 2 from Autry, 2 from Irvin, 1 from Mack. End up getting finally a pick, like you brought up earlier with Bowman in the end zone. It was like an angel came down and just guided the ball into his hands. So that's a big key for me in this game too, is that the Raiders are finally doing some things on defense and trying some new things, and rushing the quarterback and finding an identity in that defensive game, because they're going to need it if they're going to end up making a playoff run or later on.
Yeah, and we were literally talking about this earlier. They have the Giants this week, and the Giants they have 2 wins this year. They lost to the Chargers. That's the only team they lost to in the AFC West so far. But they beat the Broncos 23-10, and they beat Kansas City Chiefs 12-9. Not last week, the week before. But this is going to be an important game right here for the Raiders, and they'll need to be on top of their game. There'll probably be some butterflies in their stomach and this and that, but you're not too sure what Geno Smith's going to do in this offense. He didn't look too good when he played for the other New York team, the Jets, but it could be this could be a make or break week for them. And with that one interception last week, it makes you wonder if this defense is finally going to get it into gear.
Man, if they do finally get into gear, I will just be, as happy as can be. I've just been praying for that defense to do something all season, and hopefully it's a turning point, but I'm not going to say it right now. But I definitely want to see them and definitely playing some other games to finally make my judgment on that defense. But yeah, they got the Giants coming in this Sunday, and my prediction on it is Geno Smith. He's starting his first start this season for the Giants. He's a dual threat quarterback. I think he's going to give some problems to that defense. The Raiders have some injuries with Amari Cooper. He might not play. He's still questionable with the concussion. Crabtree is out. That's Derek Carr's favorite target. And so I think it's going to be a close game. I feel like it's going to be like a game the Chiefs and the Giants had a couple weeks ago where it's kind of just like field goals and all that stuff. But I do believe the Raiders are going to pull this one out and become 500 again, as well with the Chargers and the Chiefs, because I believe the Chiefs will lose this week, and it's going to be a three-way tie in the AFC West. How do you think that's going to go?
Oh man, it's interesting. Like you said, I can definitely see a lot of stuff shaping up this week. I think Kansas City will lose, and I do agree with you. They have a really good chance. The the Raiders and Chargers both have a really good chance of winning this week, and I think the Chiefs are just falling. So really, I just believe, like you said, three-way tie. It's going to be a three-way tie. It's going to be difficult. So we'll see, what happens this week.
Oh yeah, and yeah, three-way tie would be cool. It's just would show the mediocrity in the AFC West, but 6-6, three teams. It's going to be kind of a wild finish, whatever way you look at it in the AFC West. So that's what we got to look forward to. But my mistake earlier for the Dolphins playing the Chargers. I guess they play the Chiefs. I guess they play the Broncos. How do you see that shaping up? And in Denver, what's the attitude going up against the Dolphins this week?
So like you said, Jay Cutler might come back, and he hasn't really stung the Broncos too much since Josh McDaniels pretty much screwed this team. Well, when he screwed this team. But I do agree with some of the experts out there. This might be a more defensive game, but at the same time, it can be completely opposite and be an offensive game for both teams. Uh, so I highly doubt that the latter right there, but I think they'll do well. I'm still very skeptical about if they'll win. I did make a prediction with one of the guys I work with. I said the Broncos will win in Miami this weekend, lose the 3 games in between, and then win last week against Kansas City.
Oh, I like that prediction a lot too. It just sounds right. It sounds like some Denver Broncos like this season, just up and down. But I think they have a chance at winning if they start Trevor Siemian. I'm not sure who they're starting. I haven't heard anything yet. Do you know? Did they say anything?
So as far as I know, Simeon will be starting this weekend, and I know Brock will be backing him up. Obviously, you have Paxton Lynch who's out for 2 to 4 weeks. They'll probably just cut him down for the season, or who knows? They might even bring him back for that last week and just run all 3 quarterbacks against the Chiefs or something. But at the end of the day, like you said, they have the best chance with Simeon, and they need to put Simeon in there, especially you have Matt Moore and Cutler down there. If Cutler's healthy, he'll play. He throws a lot of interceptions, so it it definitely would help Simeon out if the defense can force some turnovers, and it'll make Simeon look better. And essentially, Simeon, with this last 5 weeks, if he's starting, he can save a spot on the team for next season.
Yeah, it was like the defense I called earlier. I said that they were fading away from their eliteness, but it doesn't mean this defense isn't good and have the potential to be great like it usually is. And I think Miami's defense is pretty good too. I know the Raiders went down there and played them, and they surprised me with how good their defense is. But yeah, I can see this being a defensive game, and if they start Trevor Simeon, I think he gives them the best chance of winning. And I think the Denver Broncos might pull this one out and become 4-8, and silence like the critics and all the naysayers that the Broncos been getting with this. I think it's a 6-game losing streak. No,
Yeah, something like that. Something 6, 7, 7, 7, I believe.
7-game losing streak. So yeah, hopefully they can silence all those guys and just stick with Simeon, and then just look forward to the offseason and making some big changes in that system.
Yeah, it's a long way for them to climb back up. I know people are pointing out all kinds of mistakes this team has had. There's a couple collapses by the defense this year. It feels like to me that they've gotten away from what they do best, which is man coverage. And I think they were fearful with letting TJ Ward go and having younger guys playing his position. That's why they started playing more zone. But, really, Denver just has to get their head back in the game, improve on offense, and that's something they'll have to work for the rest of the season and evaluate who they want to keep and how far they want to go during the offseason. So this is a perfect game for them to evaluate where they're at.
I think so too, which leads to our next segment, the AFC West defensive and offensive players of the week. We do that weekly here on the West 'em Up podcast. And some big games coming up. We have the Chargers and the Raiders, who are 1 game behind 500, or 1 game behind 500, and also the number 1 spot in the AFC. The Chiefs are sitting on top 6-5, and the Broncos 3-8. Some big games. Who are your offensive player of the week, I should say?
Oh, for me, it has to be Alex Smith. I mean, I know there's a lot of good offensive players. You're looking at Keenan Allen. You're looking at, just a stacked Chargers team in general, a stacked Oakland team. You're even looking at the Broncos that could have a big week on offense, but it has to be Alex Smith this week. He has to throw for over 200 and I'll say 270 yards. He has to throw at least 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, run the ball a little bit. I mean, this guy, he's essentially playing for his job, so he has to be the offensive player of the week in the AFC West.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. You have Alex Smith, like you said, who's playing for his job. You got Mahomes, who's on the hot seat right now. Everybody's looking towards him if Alex Smith doesn't have a big week this next week. So I can see that happening. But I think I'm gonna go down south to sunny LA and jump on the Keenan Allen bandwagon. This dude has been crazy these last few weeks. I said earlier, over 300 in 2 weeks with 3 touchdowns, and he's just playing dominant football. And this offense is at its peak right now, I feel like, and him and Rivers are just connecting, and they're going up against a 0-11 Cleveland team who's had some just history of being one of the worst teams. And I know they're looking for a win this upcoming week, but that doesn't mean they'll get it. And I think Keenan Allen's due for another big game.
Yeah, I can see that happening. So who's going to be your defensive player of the week?
Defensive player of the week. I'm a little biased right now. The Raiders defense just looked so good last week, man. So I'm gonna jump on my own team's bandwagon and go with the Raiders defense. I think they step up to the challenge of Geno Smith taking the realm in the New York Giants quarterback locker room or whatever. And Geno Smith, it's no easy cakewalk. That's what David Amerson said, the safety for the Raiders. And I think they step up to the challenge and they rush him, maybe get a few interceptions, and prove all the naysayers wrong that the team's having a bad defense this season. And I'm gonna take the Raiders defense. My bad. What about you, Milo?
So I'm a hop to y'all's rival, and I think a lot of it sits on we've seen how poor. I wouldn't say he really necessarily played poor this past week, but you got Brendan Langley, the rookie
Mm,
cornerback from the Broncos. So with Talib out for this game, um, and for most of the Raiders game, he was you could tell he's a young guy. He didn't understand the game as much. The receivers were just taking advantage of him. And you had Chris Harris, I believe, who was covering Amari Cooper for most of the game. So Chris Harris, by far one of the best corners in the league. But Brendan Langley, he's going to have to show up. You got a Dolphins team that, you never know what their receivers can do. Chris Harris will probably be, picking up Landry from them. So they'll be attacking Langley's side. Roby will be protecting the slot. So, you just don't know what's going to happen with this kid. And if he can show up and shut down whoever he's guarding or at least, make it a difficult game, the Broncos could easily win this game.
yeah, he's a young kid at the age of 23. Third round pick by Denver coming out of Lamar College, and yeah, I think he did well his last game. Stepped up with a keep to leave not there, and like you said, you never know with guys giving a chance in the NFL, he might just become one of the next big names and big hitters on that defense. So yeah, I'm gonna be definitely looking for that this upcoming Sunday and him.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely going to be a interesting week. So one thing I pointed out, wrote an article about the AFC West and how it's declined. Um, it really has truly become one of the more intriguing divisions in the league now, with a tight race for the title. So tune in this week to whatever station, whether it's you know uh, one of the three-letter networks. I won't mention them on our show just because copyright or whatever. But yeah, tune in the TV and catch some of these games. These might be some of the best games you'll see for the rest of the season. So without further ado, my name's Milo Hake. I'm from Denver.
I'm Kate Campbell. Make sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at West 'em Up Podcast. Make sure to go to Armchair All Americans. Check out Milo's work. He writes some great articles. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a good one. I'm Kate Campbell coming from Seattle, Washington.
Cool. Have a good one, folks.
Peace.